Welcome to the Still Rolling Jiu Jitsu podcast with your host, Matthew Montgomery.
Hi, and welcome back to the Still Rolling Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm Matthew Montgomery. Today, Todd Kramer is joining me. He's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioner, entrepreneur, and founder of BJJ OS. It's a training platform with an app available on the App Store, built to help grapplers of all levels study, grow, and compete smarter. A student of Essential BJJ under JT Torres, Todd believes passion is everything, and that he brings that same fire to the mats every single day. Off the mats, he's a gallerist and creative director who co-founded Ross Kramer Gallery, with spaces in New York City and Miami, giving many of today's top artists their very first show before launching Future Forward, a new gallery opening in March at the intersection of contemporary art, culture, and creativity. Working across art, music, and fashion, Todd is a self-proclaimed dot connector and punk rock thinker with a bias towards authentic, organic action. Welcome to the show, Todd. How are you?
I'm good, Matthew. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So we kind of met on social media, and you were plugging your app BJJ OS, and the timing of when I came across your stuff, I had literally downloaded like 5 different apps into my phone to figure out which one I wanted that was going to work for what I wanted. And so that it was a seriously like serendipitous time when I came across it. And I actually assumed that you were a software developer. I was actually very surprised when I found out, you're a gallerist, and I think that's awesome. Tell me more about why and how you got into developing an app, especially with a software background.
Yeah, I have zero software background. I've never built a website. So I think what really happened, right, was kind of just wanting to find a way to build something that I wanted, right? And I'm going to be clear. This really started with just learning about this term vibe coding and understanding the empowerment that's happening right now to the average person that didn't exist. I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking maybe 5 or 6 months ago. This ability to use AI to help you code, not to do it for you. Let me be clear. You have to really understand all the moving parts and all the idiosyncrasies around it. But this started happening, and I said, okay, I want to teach myself this. And I remember, maybe in 3rd grade, there was an invention convention in New York State. Gratuitous plug, I actually did win it. But they taught us, find a problem that you're dealing with, a problem that you have, and find a way to fix it. So I literally went to that concept in my head and was like, I want to teach myself how to vibe code. What problem do I have? And the first problem that I could think of, and it's really not a problem, it's a good problem, let me be clear, was being on a bunch of group chats with guys in the academy forwarding YouTube videos around, right? Check this technique out, check this one out, check that out. So my initial kind of just first thought was, maybe I can text myself a random technique of the day. So literally just building it for myself, and it went from there to really learning things that I never understood how to do, and kind of just this rabbit hole of diving deeper, learning more, where I was ultimately able to kind of build like pretty intricate app that does a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, really what it does, I guess, just to kind of just get that out of the way real quick, is every night it's scanning for videos, right? That's a problem that we have. Like, I go on YouTube, I'm interested in this, and I spend 3 minutes watching a video and then realize it's not for me, right? So, that's one problem, I guess, that we have, that I kind of discovered new problems as I was going along. So it's going out every single night and scanning videos. On average, it scans about I want to say like 1,000 videos a night, and maybe screens anywhere between 60 to 90 videos that it deems, worthy based on an algorithm that I put together that kind of says that this is worth watching. We can get into that at some
Yeah.
point if you're interested in. But like things such as the teacher, credentials, down to audio and video quality, right? So it started by doing that, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. All right, so I can now get videos for myself that I want to watch and save myself a lot of time, right? I then discovered and took it a step forward, which was I started to analyze the videos. So not transcript, right? Like anyone can just read a transcript, but it was more key points, do's, don'ts, key quotes that professors might say, um, and aggregate those as well. So now I've got good videos, and I also have analysis of these videos. So now I'm saying, all right, this is pretty awesome. How do I organize them? Another problem that I had, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this have, is you fall down a YouTube rabbit hole and you favorite videos. I'm not very organized. My brain is very scattered at all times. And I can't really recall where that video is. It just gets into like this graveyard of saved videos, right? Like it's just, and so kind of
Yeah.
recalling something that you wanted to watch, you still can't find it, right? So then I implemented like a save
Yeah.
function. So that went in.
Yeah.
Um, and then I said to myself, all right, I've got all this data, right? I've got analysis that's being saved to a database. So right now, BJJ OS, I think, has, after today, like 7,300 videos. And it has to me, the more important thing is 7,300 videos that are analyzed and saved. So it has a lot of information. What can I do with that, right? And I decided that I was going to create a guy named Professor Os. And we hear the term AI, me included. People are like, this is not for me, right? It's going to be some generic Chat GPT answer on an armbar. I'm good with that. And the beauty of what this has done is it's effectively synthesized all of this analysis into a
Yeah.
conversational chatbot who knows about you, who knows what you worked on last week, who knows what you've asked about. It's kind of to me like a real training partner, right? Like I train with JT. I'm blessed and grateful to train with JT Torres. He's, I have to give him a plug. He's an incredible, incredible human being. Forget about two-time ADCC gold winner. But I'm
Right.
fortunate. I'm fortunate to have that. But it's not at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm when I'm doom scrolling on YouTube looking at videos.
You
If I'm
can't
not
text
listening to your
JT.
podcast, Matthew, that so it is there. So I implemented that and I call this guy Professor Os. I thought I was cute using Os as operating system and obviously as jujitsu lingo Os.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I implemented in was what I thought was just kind of like a bonus, and people who I beta tested this with at the academy all love it, and it's available widely on so many apps, but it's more just a training logger, right? So you can go in,
Yeah.
log what you trained. And the beautiful thing is when you talk back to Professor O's, if you choose to, it even knows what you trained last week based on what's in your training logger. So it's synthesizing everything to give you some smart answers. And I think it's great. People in the academy, some guys, I beta tested it. I gave it to all the people at Essential when I first started, even before I was on the App Store, which was an educational thing to begin with because I had never built an app. And they all use it for different ways. Some guys are purely using it as a very well organized library of videos. It sorts by
Yeah.
position, technique. I'm sure and they love the analysis portion. I can read before I watch. That saves me a lot of time. And then in my head, I'm thinking, well, I also saved you time because these videos are good, I think. And you can check them out. Some guys are literally using it as a training partner. In my mind, I'm like, you could have Google Calendar. You have that if you
Yeah.
want, but that's cool that you have it, and it has like preset drop-ins of techniques you train, gi no gi, performance, and you can get leave notes, so on and so forth. And some guys are using Professor Oates more than I was expecting. To me, Professor Oates
Yeah.
is cool, but I think that there's a little bit of just by the moment that we live in time. I think that humans still are a little reluctant to expose themselves to AI and believe what they're getting back. So, what I find cool is like
Sure.
if someone asks about a guillotine, it's not going to say, here's how you do it. It'll say, well, Marcelo Garcia suggests this, but JT Torres says this. It's like it's giving you multiple answers. Are there any that you're interested in? Because I'm happy to suggest a video for you. All right. Well, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
how it happened.
and that's key. That's key. I work with AI daily. I'm a mainframe engineer for a large tech company, and we're literally required to use AI in our jobs, and it's been met with we're resistant to it, especially on a technology like mainframe. Um, from a it's just so different than how we've always operated. But I've gotten to a point where I'm using AI, not only in my professional life, but I use it for my podcast, and I use it for all kinds of other things. Like some of the work that I do with Weedify, it helps me draft emails, and there's a lot of different ways you can use it as a tool. That once you learn how to kind of babysit and massage the AI to make it do what you want it to do, um, you know you're going to be in great shape. And we're, as you said, we're in the infancy stage of AI, and things like being able to vibe code and use AI to help you actually code, not just applications. Again, we're using it in large enterprise software to help us solve problems. So from a jujitsu standpoint, I'm super happy that your application, and there's other applications out there, but I actually like yours better, um, are starting to implement this, because I know that this is a tool that, as you keep developing your application, I mean, it's just going to keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah. And you hit
So
the nail on the head.
how did you get into jujitsu? What was that?
Man, okay. Wow. All right. So for, jujitsu, about 15 years ago, I started training, and I trained for 3.5 years under a professor named Jucao. Jucao came from Teresópolis, Brazil, to America. This is really early days of BJJ. Didn't have his own academy. I mean, we were bouncing around from different, gyms effectively. We got 2 months here, 1 month there. And Jucao is now a coral belt. He got that last year. He trained under Carlo Gracie Jr. And I started training with him and fell in love with it. Trained really hard for, like I said, 3.5 years. And I want to say, I guess we can call it the blue belt blues, but I don't think it really was. I think it was life, right? I had my first kid, had a second kid, and all of a sudden something that was dominating my life, which I still wanted to dominate my life, I had another person in the house basically saying, you have other responsibilities, buddy. And
Yeah.
I kind of faded away, right? And life lifed, and time went on, and I just stopped, right? Completely stopped going. And so I want to say I'm back for about a year now only. And this has been the greatest comeback of my life. Uh, truly, 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 we're talking about a man, and I share my story with a lot of people. Someone who went through, severe depression, weight gain, divorce, misery, just, all over the place, and kind of always chalked it up to, yeah, I'm a nutty creative, and that's just how we are. Right? And
Yeah.
I'm remarried, and my wife now wanted to send my son to martial arts. And she starts telling me about some of these places locally where she wants to send our kid. Maybe it was like the old BJJ in me. I was like, no, he's not doing any of that. You're going to send him
Right.
to a to a real jujitsu academy. That's where he should go.
Yeah.
And some of them were like kind of like MMA schools. I don't want to, use names. Names I was like, I'm not putting my name on that. So she brings him to this place, Essential Jiu-Jitsu. And now keep in mind, I am out of the jiu-jitsu loop. Like when I was training, like there was no YouTube videos of technique, right?
Right.
Like, professors used to get like really butthurt when people bounced around from academy to academy, and I think it still exists now. But the reason why it was happening back then, and here I go on a tangent, but was they had techniques that another school may not have, right? Like we have a guy, and we did, but like there's a guy in my academy, De La Hiva, he's teaching us this new guard. Well, like that academy kind of has that. And when they go to compete, like that's secret sauce, right?
Right.
Now we kind of live in a time where information is disseminated everywhere so fast. So anyway, she sends him to Essential Jiu Jitsu, and she's telling me all about how great this place is. Now, I don't know who JT Torres is. I'm out of the loop, and she's trying to get me to come back. I think it'll be really good for you. You should go. Dude, I'm 49 now. I'm like, I'm old. I'm overweight. I don't remember any of this stuff. I'll think about it. Think about it probably was like 3 months until one time she had me pick up my son from his class. And I walk in and I'm floored. And what was I floored about? Because when I first started training jujitsu, I mean, I'm talking like Marcelo had just opened up his academy, and it was like a big deal
Yeah.
at the time. Like there really weren't, Henzo Gracie in New York City was open, but they were very specific. Having showers was a luxury, right? Like back then, or
Right.
clean mats. And I
Yeah.
and I walk into the academy, right? And I'm floored. It's a beautiful space, 2 mats, and still at this point, I don't know anything about the instructors. So now I say, all right, I'm going to go back. Took probably another 3 weeks to muster up the courage, which I think, like I say to a lot of people, the hardest belt to get is the white belt. Like I really feel
Yeah.
firmly in that. Like just getting motivated to go is the hard part. And I walk in and I go to the guy at the desk who is a black belt. He actually has his own academy now. Heritage Jiu Jitsu. His name is Marcus Johnson. He's a great competitor, great person. And I walk up and I say, I want to sign up. And Marcus says, have you trained before? I tell him Jukao. He happened to know him. What belt were you? I said blue. And I look at Marcus and I go, but I want to start as white belt again. Because I see this comp class going on right now. And I'm like, there's no
Yes.
way I'm going in there. And he looked at me, I'll never forget this, and said, how long did it take for you to get your blue belt? And I said, well, Jukao is kind of an old school Brazilian guy. I was like, I worked probably 2.5 years, 4 days a week, two to 2.5 years, 4 days a week. And, I got it. He's like, well, I'm not taking that away from you. And I just remember like in my head, I was thinking like, no, please take it. But I said,
Yeah.
okay. And he said, all right, well, the good news is we do three free class trials, any type of thing, most academies have some, what is it called? Introductory offer. And I remember I looked at him and I was just like, nah, man, just sign me up. Like I'm
Yeah.
if I'm here, I'm
Right,
going
we're
in.
good. I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I made it this far.
Well,
Don't give me the out.
well, and so and over the years, I've trained with guys that have left for long periods of time and come back. A couple times it's been a blue belt, a couple times it's been a purple belt. Where the purple belt, you've got like this mental thing, right? Because we all know what a purple belt is, right? And so if you haven't trained for years and you have those doubts getting back onto the mats, and you know what a purple belt is supposed to be, and you're wearing it, and you don't think you can carry that, that's extra pressure, right? That's not, hey, I've been off the mats and I'm a white belt, and so nobody gives a shit. It's, I'm gonna come on here and people are gonna test me, and so I totally understand like what that that mental headspace would be. I'd also say that I agree with you on the white belt being the hardest belt. And I don't know what your conversion rate is for getting your neighbors and friends to go try jujitsu if they've never done it. But I know that my conversion rate's like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just not to get somebody to walk through the door for the first time. That's not a small task.
Yeah, and
So
it's an intimidating thing for someone who's never done it before to walk into, right? And like you said, I agree with you that
100%.
the purple belt thing, like there's a certain level of imposter syndrome that can exist. Like I'm not this, right? And people are going to be gunning for me. I will say, I was really fortunate in this journey, that when I did come back, the academy, there, essential jujitsu is a pretty, people will say it's a big room. It's a good room of a
Yeah.
lot of competitors. I learned from a guy named Chaz Kanyas, he's a black belt now, but he was IBJJF's #1 ranked middleweight brown belt. You have JT who rolls with all of us and is active. And for me, the thing that really just like jumped out, there was like a huge kind of like head explosion moment of when I started coming around. And I think about it kind of like you see someone every single day, they could be losing weight or gaining weight, but it's hard to kind of like notice the micro frequency that it happens. Having that like
Mhm.
layoff and coming back, my head really exploded in terms of the change in the space and in the sport. It's totally
Yeah.
different. When I first started training, it was like guys who were coming in because UFC was starting to get big. I'm talking like Damian Maia was competing at the time, and guys were
Mhm.
coming in thinking to themselves like, "I want to break someone's arm." It was like tap out, affliction, ass whooping. These were the guys
Yeah.
who were there for the most part. And now I'm in this room and I'm like, okay, we have those guys still, and you have the competitors, but I've got doctors, lawyers, moms, just a total mixed bag of people. Uh, and that was something that didn't exist. And women and kids, I'm like, holy cow, this is nuts. The
Right.
growth on that side too. So I was fortunate though, because this academy, as seasoned and as good of a room as it has, JT, I will give him this, has truly created an environment at Essential that is welcoming. Like, when you're
Yeah.
rolling, it's not so welcoming, necessarily.
Sure.
But this is a guy who is like, I tell my friends, I'm like, no, you don't understand. I walked into this place and it's like the equivalent of Steph Curry. It's his gym teaching free throws.
Yeah.
And JT he's talking to everyone. So like my second day there, this dude comes in and he comes up to me. He's like, hey, what's your story? I tell him. We became friends and we're really good friends now. So I was really fortunate to that because I think that that's something, if you kind of like took the analytics of a gym, just like a thought that I've had a little bit recently. It used to be, okay, we have showers. They don't. All right, this gym's better.
Yeah.
We have now. Then it was like we have better soap. Like or like we
Yeah.
do laundry. There's only a finite amount of things that you can really do to differentiate yourself from another academy. If someone might say our program is better than someone else or our teachers are better, but I truly believe that that's still quite limited. And the thing that really can differentiate an academy, and it's hard to really put your finger on like the pulse of how to execute this, is culture, right? Gym culture. What kind of gym and what
100%.
kind of academy is this? And so I walked into an academy that truly has amazing culture. And I'm sure like most jujitsu practitioners at any gym they go to, you start building these relationships, these people start becoming your friends, right?
Yeah.
And in this world we live in today where everyone's on their screens and I'm really bad at it and most people are, I think that we're going to move into a direction where like human connection and just being around other people outside of your home, that's been kind of shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, that I think these
Yeah.
moments for someone to experience other people and camaraderie, it's valuable. And I see the
Mhm.
value in that.
Even inside a home, a lot of times people are still on their phones. I know that I'm on my phone too much. Um, my wife will tell you; she'll agree. So and sometimes it's for perfectly legitimate at work or working on a podcast or whatever it is. But sometimes I'm just scrolling media just to doom scroll and kill time, and when I could be paying more attention to the people around me that matter. You can't take your phone onto the jujitsu mat and roll, right? So like it's built in that distraction is gone. Um, and I remember actually, you talk about culture and getting in with a good gym. Back in like 2012, I was in South Carolina training at Charleston MMA, and and I remember, this is back, pretty early days still jujitsu, and um, I was a white belt. I felt like I was, you know, decent for a white belt, but I'd moved down there, so I was brand new to this gym, and this was the era where, man, like, and this was a fighter's gym, and so like there was like this tight group of dudes, right, that I wasn't in yet. Like I was starting to train there, and I was working hard and those things, but I definitely saw that there was like a core group in this room, And I remember when they invited me to come to, I think that where were they going? They were going to like Hooters to watch the UFC event one night, and they invited me to go. And I was like,
Sounds like a fighter's gym.
I'm in. I'm in. They invited me to go watch the fights. Fuck yeah. So and and a couple of those guys, I'm still friends with it. I've not lived down there for more than a decade, and and I'm still friends with some really good jujitsu practitioners. And but the culture back then was definitely much more. It felt and looked more daunting as far as getting into the group than it is now. And I trained at a one of the nicest gyms in the country at Gracie, Ohio. It's actually the first jujitsu gym that was in Ohio. It's been in business since 1992, and we call it the Jiu-Jitsu Mega Church because it's like clean and spacious, and there's mints in the bathroom. Like it is a nice gym, right? Now, other gyms are nice, and so that's where the culture comes in. It's we had maybe the facilities arms race for a while, but now your culture matters. You also mentioned about gyms being kind of hoarding knowledge, and that is I will credit YouTube to kind of forcefully kind of killing some of that dynamic in that you can't just hide knowledge because now all of the information is available and people know how to get to it.
Yeah.
So it's nice that at least in our gym, guys will we have people that come into our gym all the time, for open mats that are from other gyms. It's a good relationship, and so forth. I'll go up to Chitwood, or we've got Super Systems guys coming into us. So like there's good relationships in our area, and I hope that that's the way that it is everywhere. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I just think that the concept of welcoming the new guy is so big, and it's hard to like implement that, right? Like it's just this weird way of just instituting this culturally. Yeah, you could say like upper belts pair with lower belts, like okay, but I just think like walking up to a guy who's on the mat for their first time or joining your level class for the first time and just like introducing yourself, nobody likes being the new guy. I don't care what it is.
Yeah,
I've never found someone who says, I enjoy being new. I hated being new at school. I hated being new at camp or new at a job, whatever it may be. Being new sucks,
yeah,
right? So like, and it's kind of very easy, I think, you know, intellectually maybe or from within your ego to like forget very quickly that you were the new guy also at one point. So I just think, for me, like I try to, make an effort when I see someone come in and just be a little cool because like that could be student retention
100%.
for the academy, and I want to help the academy out. I want to help people who help me.
And it is easy to forget, especially 1 in 10 white belts make it to blue belt. Statistically speaking, people quit, right? So, when you've been around a while, you'll see, people come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go, and the few that trickle through become part of the group, and so introducing yourself to people that in the back of your head you may kind of have an idea, they may or may not make it, 6 months or a year
Mhm.
or to a blue belt or whatever it is. I think sometimes people can forget that. So if it's built into your gym culture to make sure that, I have an instructor that, start of every class he teaches, we go down the line and everybody is, this is everybody's name, and we make it a point to bring the new person in. I think it's a good way to at least kickstart some of that, getting to know the new people.
Yeah. I think that
So
I
are
read a
you are
stat
you
today. I apologize.
no, don't
Yeah,
apologize.
no,
This is fun.
I read a stat today, like I'm gonna butcher the numbers, so I won't give the exact numbers, but it was effectively like 90 days. That first 90 days for an academy is actually the most important. Like after if a student can make it past 90 days, the retention rate explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just something, it was like an interesting stat and had me thinking a lot
Okay.
about that.
I haven't heard that one. Um,
Yeah.
uh, that makes sense though. I mean, once they've gotten past 90 days, maybe they're getting close to getting a stripe, and they can start seeing some progress happening. Right, they're no longer completely lost. I mean, they're still a white belt, right? They're still like a no stripe white belt, but at least they have an understanding, and maybe they know what the positions are.
Hmm.
They know the difference between a gable grip and an S grip, maybe. So there's pieces of learning that they're going to be able to recognize. Yeah, that 90-day mark, I think you're probably right, and I bet you I'd be willing to bet like some of the gym apps like Spark can probably, there's got to be reporting that these gym apps can let them know about retention and how long people stay.
Yeah, I
Um,
dove down that rabbit hole, just to get on the tech side of things. I've been playing with Clawbot a
yeah.
little bit. So
Okay.
I kind of dove down that rabbit hole of, seeing what gym management softwares people are using. I think like at Essential they use MindBody. I mean, there's like three or four of them, but it's pretty interesting because they're not necessarily like jujitsu centric apps. For more for like gym retention and gym statistics. But obviously the
Yeah.
data is there. That if someone, like you said, knew what they were doing, you could easily connect through an API and pull all that data out. But yeah, it's just I'm a
Yeah.
data nerd. I like data. I like trying to figure things out through data, maybe like through a different lens, or just trying to
Sure.
understand through data.
So, where do you think that comes from? Because I mean, you're obviously you're a gallerist. You know, you're an art. Are you an artist, or are you more into how do that?
Yeah, I can't paint, I can't sculpt at all. But for some reason, and it's funny you asked that because I was thinking about this today and was in conversation with an artist today about the concept of taste.
Mm-hmm.
I have a taste that's just my taste, right? And we were talking about the concept of you can't teach taste.
Right.
I'm like, well, he was saying it in a complimentary role towards my taste, but I took it a step further and it kind of explained I can't teach you what my taste is. I can't
Right.
there is actually, for a guy who loves data, there is no I can't decode my personal algorithm for what I perceive to be good or not. Like there's no cookie cutter analysis of that. So what I do, I work with a lot of artists. They have helped discover a lot of artists. So I think if we did it in terms of like from like a music perspective, maybe I'm a guy who goes out and is able to find bands that no one ever heard of and connect dots and amplify them to a level where they become a household name. And that's
Yeah.
really what I do. But so no, I can't paint. No, I can't sculpt, and I can't explain to you how I pick things. And because like the artists that I work with, they're all different mediums. I work with musicians now. I've helped do a lot of covers, work on the creative side of connecting a
Yeah.
musician or a band with an artist who I think their visions align and, develop kind of like a vision board for what the album release might look like and the energy around it. I've spent a lot of
Yeah.
time in music studios. I can't play an instrument. Um, and but my opinion, I don't know why, but people say like, "What do you think of this?" And what do I think? I don't know, but like, here's what I
Right.
think. And I'm very blessed and fortunate that, and I think an authenticity, right? Like, I'm not going to say I think something's good if I don't think it's good. And at the same time, I believe in the creatives that I work with all around. Um, they have a gift, and it's not my place to try to mold that. I'm not the director of the show in any capacity. I feel like my job a lot of times is to kind of be like the hype man, right? Like be on the side
Okay.
and encourage creativity. I'm fortunate that I have been in this business and seen a lot of the do's and the don'ts over the years that I, kind of give unbiased advice when asked from experience. And The one thing I always tell all the artists, and I'm thinking more like painters and sculptors, more like visual artists, is always like make what you want. Truly, make what is what's inside of you. Because if you are making something because you think it's going to sell or you think that people are going to like it, to me, then it loses that authenticity and that energy. And then all of a sudden, you're making something for someone else when you have this gift of making and it's making for yourself. I know it sounds a
This
little
is
wonky, but
no, you're actually so okay. I listen to all kinds of music, but the genre that I cannot get into is popular country music, and it's none of them write their own damn music. They're given a song that was written by somebody else, and they say sing it this way. It's not an accent they even have naturally half the time, and so it just I could not care less about it. It's like when punk bands go pop, or uh you know Metallica's first several albums were amazing, and then they became, in my opinion, uh corporate metal, and they sucked. And yeah, okay, you know what, they're much better at making music than I am. I'm not a musician, but I think that the authenticity piece, it's like I can feel it when somebody is performing a song or singing a song that is theirs.
Mhm.
uh it's totally different. And so from an artist standpoint, if they're a painter, if they're not painting what they feel and what they feel like they can create, from within themselves, and they're just creating something they think other people will like, I can't imagine that it'll be very good.
It's not.
um yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think to echo like what you said, and I think you're so right on the music front. I mean, with technology, right? We can kind of figure out the algorithm of what will become pop, right? If it's at this BPM and it's this, this format, and we're gonna angle it, well, Taylor Swift is breaking up with everyone in her songs, and that's selling. So let's go to that angle. Like
Yeah.
it's like there is kind of like a formula that the machine has, and
Have
it's
you
kind of
ever
like
seen Have you ever seen the YouTube video where they stack like 12 country music songs on top of each other? Every track like playing all at once, and you can't tell that it's a different song. It's like all exactly the same.
because that
Yeah.
sells because
Yeah.
that formula is working today. And like I was actually going to say something else, but okay. So first, like my thought also is, it's kind of like anything, right? Like private equity gets involved, scale. We want to get it bigger. We got to strip it down. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time, like the concept of the algorithm, and when I say the algorithm, we can use your country music as an example. Like we know this works. Or the algorithm on social media to get to the main page or to get the most views. Like there is now like an understanding kind of like if I do this, this will be a success. Well, success to me, it's that subjective. But so what is happening though is because of this and because of this algorithm minded creator who has this algorithm in the back of their mind, I believe that creativity is actually getting stripped down. It's a lot harder to think outside the box when you kind of know there's a formula that exists out there that says this is going to be good. And once
Right.
again, good is subjective. What is good? So I've been telling a lot of people lately, a lot of the artists that I work with and friends in that industry, that I envision, and once again, I could be completely wrong, but I envision this take back of authenticity, like almost like authenticity is the new punk rock. Like, and
Hmm.
that is a very radical thought when you think about that. Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, like being authentic is actually being punk.
It's
I
like
mean,
edgy. Yeah.
yeah, but I think that that's where we're going. Like it hasn't happened yet, but I kind of feel like you just used that example of the country song, and I can list so many other examples along the lines of all in all different industries where it's like this is the cookie cut formula of how to do it,
Yeah.
and I think that. all of a sudden, when someone actually is authentic, or someone speaks the truth, or someone is not afraid to say they failed, or someone's not afraid to say they screwed up. What do you mean he screwed up? I thought everything on social media is supposed to be, you know, ponies and unicorns. Like,
Yeah.
like that is what the human connection, kind of like to circle back what I said about just being in jujitsu academies around humans. I think that we're going to at some point move into a place where being human is the new punk. Being authentic is the new thing. And once that happens, well, there's no algorithm to dictate being authentic. I saw a video that got thrown at me and through the algorithm recently, which was basically saying like nobody can be Matthew Montgomery better than Matthew Montgomery.
It's
Like
true.
no one has that experience besides you, and no one can tell you how that experience is, or for me. So I know we're going totally to left field on this one, but I just
That's okay.
I do feel that being authentic and having the ability to be authentic, right? Like I think that the younger generation is going to maybe even have a harder time being authentic because they've been living an algorithm their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just having the ability to communicate feelings, failure, despair, stress, like I think that all of a sudden that's going to start to sit with people and be like, wait a second, I've been keeping that all to myself because I don't want anyone knowing because it's going to hurt the algorithm.
Well, and that's so. I mean, so okay, if we talk about like feelings and algorithms and those things, I mean, it's been proven and shown that apps like Instagram have been harming the mental health of teenagers because I would say teenagers and boomers because both of them don't really understand how the algorithm works. So um, you know, they see the highlight reel that everybody is putting out on social media, and they start believing that that's what reality is, and that's just not it. And as the teenagers grow into adulthood and they mature, they start figuring that out, and sometimes it's a difficult thing for them. And then like the old adage where you're telling grandpa that not everything on the internet is real. um, you know, they're having to figure out that the internet is not reality. Um, so, and I know that this is a jujitsu podcast, but I'm perfectly okay getting off on tangents like these because I think it's important stuff to talk about.
Well,
And as
I
it
can
relates
help.
to jujitsu, you
So I was just going to say
jujitsu
that's
is
why jujitsu.
reality.
Jujitsu. I was
Yeah.
just going to say it's actually he nailed it. It's the perfect springboard, right? Because
Hmm.
to me, jujitsu is reality. Jujitsu also, and I think we see this kind of meta. Here we go with the algorithm. We see this meta though, kind of hitting the market of maybe it's not as much about self defense as it is about or breaking arms as it is about mental health and physical health, right? And so to me, I feel very, very strongly about jujitsu and its role in mental health. I think for someone like myself, who I've been fairly good on this podcast, but I have incredible ADD, and this is the one time when I'm on the mats and I'm rolling, maybe during when instructional components, I space out a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I'm rolling, it's like, wait a second, is this what it feels like for someone who doesn't have this ADD? Because my brain is not going 10,000 miles a minute. It's really locked in on that present moment. And I think that I train like 5 or 6 days a week. I can totally, totally see a change in the wiring of my brain already. Being like because I have that, mental break. So it may not be meditation or transcendental meditation, but it is some form of meditation because the brain is taking a breather. And my neck might not
Well,
be, but
so
my
like
brain is.
if you're trying to meditate, what are they telling you to do? They're telling you to find your center and like remove all distraction, right? That's what you do when you do jujitsu is you're removing all of that distraction. My son went. He had a kidney transplant a few weeks ago now, and getting back onto the mats and actually the lead up to when we were trying to get a donor, I was stressed out. Like the week before he got his donor, I was way overstressed. And I, like emotional, regularly just like emotional. And you get on the mats and maybe the first parts where they're explaining stuff, your mind's still kind of off. And I have the same ADD brain where I'm watching them describe a technique and then they're like, ready, go. And you're like, what, what are we doing? But then once you're actually training and you're rolling, like it all goes away and you get that time to center yourself on, jujitsu. And so,
Yeah, I
all
always
that
say
other
it's
bullshit.
like Charlie Brown. The teacher and Charlie Brown's talking, and the words aren't even coming out. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes that happens. And the other thing that's beautiful about jujitsu, and I think this doesn't apply just to this sport per se, but you kind of start rolling uphill, in other areas of your life, right? Like, I want to perform better. Okay, well, what does that equal? Well, I want to sleep better. I want to eat better. I'm paying more attention to other choices that I'm making outside of the academy purely because I love this and I want to continue to get better. And that is, I feel like a common theme for the most part that I've seen, at least in my academy, from my experience, is, that starts to happen with people. You're kind of looking for a little bit of an edge.
Well, and you mentioned that you've been losing weight or you lost weight. You were heavy when you came back to jujitsu. I was the same. Once upon a time I was in the Marine Corps and I was fit. And when I kind of got serious about training the last time, I was heavy. I think I maxed out. I was like 280, and right now I'm in the 230s again.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's jujitsu. And I've watched a number of other people come in and lose 50 pounds
Dude,
through
I
just
see it all the
training.
time. I'm
Yeah.
like, what happened to this guy?
Right.
And I'm sure, they might say that about me too. And it's literally like, just training. Is he on Ozempic? No, he's
Hmm.
just training.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
and
training, and then but again, they might eat a little healthier. They might drink a little bit more water because they want to be able to perform and train when they're on the mats.
yeah,
So it does feed into these other pieces of your life. And you know, how good is it for your mental health when you've lost 50 pounds you didn't want to have, right? Like, so you're not just benefiting physically from being in better shape. There's a mental aspect to that as well. Just in your own confidence, being able to look at yourself in the mirror and not be, feeling like, you've let it all go. You're getting old and you can't, you know, take care of your body anymore. So, yeah, and I do think there's other activities obviously that are good for your health. Um, but like I can't think of other like running. I'm still thinking about life while I'm running, right? If I'm lifting, I'm still thinking about life in between sets. And that is not the case at all with jujitsu. Once I'm in it and on it and I've started to go, I'm not thinking about anything else.
well, it's also the concept of like, if I'm lifting, my phone is on me, right?
Right?
Like, I could try as
Yep.
hard as you said it earlier. You're like, the phone's not coming on the mat, right? Like, if I'm running,
Yeah.
when I'm running, I'm just thinking, when is this coming to an end? And
Yeah.
and then my mind starts to wander. Like,
Yep.
I
Why am I
personally,
doing this? Yeah.
yeah, I don't have that like Zen moment that people say they get when they're running. Um, but really, it's like, if I'm not locked into right now, I'm getting choked out.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
like, if I'm not thinking about this exact millisecond, and that's it, and
You
that's
said
what it
you
does.
asked JT to put pressure on you right before we started recording, right? What was that
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, so we trained this morning, and he was showing me a technique. It was like a pressure pass, and that's kind of the game that I play, and that that we're working on. And JT starts showing me, and he kind of is like, well, like, I'm gonna just put one knee down, like, so you don't have to like really feel. And I looked at him and I said, I want you to. How did I phrase it? I think I said, no, I want to feel it. And he laughed, and I said, no, no, like, give it to me, like, this is like main stage ADCC gold medal. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I I really can't explain. and there are guys who are putting pressure, doing like it to me just made me realize the levels of this sport, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of black belts. And I'm fortunate, like that's another thing that was interesting, right? When I first trained, like a black belt was a big deal. Like oh, there were two black belts in the academy today. Whoa. Like there are times like, we have 10 that are
Yeah.
there and that we're training with. Like, a purple belt was a big deal when I first started training. It's like that is just time. Time has taken that into account. But to answer your pressure question, I mean, it's like a planet.
Yeah.
It's like a different gravitational pull. And literally, like I could tell you, I train every day. I know I'm gonna be sore tomorrow purely from
Yeah.
this 20 seconds of feeling this planet I call JT Torres.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Something I wanted to like say that I found interesting just, when I came back was obviously I'd mentioned like, kids and women that is a whole different element to jujitsu that wasn't there when I first trained. And what I'm seeing now, which is even crazier, are kids who are 16 years old who now can be blue belts because I believe by IBJJF you have to be 16 to be a blue belt,
Hmm.
who have been training for literally 12 years. And not only have they been training for 12 years, they've also been training wrestling, right? Like, and there are blue belts who are, competing at high level open competitions at this academy that I go to, who've been doing it for such a long time. And I'm sure it's the same for you. Like when you first started training, like kids classes were kind of like here and there. That wasn't a thing. Now I'm looking, like there's, where my son trains, he's 5 to 7. There were like 27 kids on the mat learning from a guy who was the number one ranked IBJJF brown belt in the world, middleweight. Like, it's
Yeah.
just wild. So I feel like that is also something where the sport's going to really be evolving soon. Is like there will be this batch of like true like guys, kids who've been doing jujitsu since they were 4 that are now 17 years old, 18 years old, and they have a lot of technique and a lot of experience behind them, and it's pretty cool to watch.
I was warning. So I have a coworker who is, I think he's about 50, and he decided he's going to start jujitsu because he hears me talk about jujitsu all the time, and he's like, I need something to be passionate about in my life the way you are with jujitsu. So um, he's trying it, and he's at a different school because we live on opposite sides of the city. Um, and he's been going now a couple months, and so he's sticking with it, and he's training, and he texts me all the time with what they're working on, and he talked about this blue belt that is like 18, 19 years old. And he's like, he's so good. I'm like, so here's the deal, he's probably been training since he was a little kid, and so that 16, 18-year old blue belt is not really, I mean, they're a blue belt, but they're going to be light years ahead of where you're at because of the fact that they've been training their whole life. So um, they're going to kill you if you let them.
Well, it's almost
So
like there's like a weird it doesn't work this way, but at least to me mentally, like I kind of like digest it in this like there's the competitive blue belts, the hobbyist blue belts, the kids who just got their blue belt purely because they turned 16 and they can get it, right?
yeah,
Like, and so like in my like I see, also, and I don't want to say I see it in my academy per se. I just think it's a truly just part of the sport. Like, and it's not sandbagging per se, but it's like a competitive blue belt or a competitive purple belt could very easily be, in my opinion, a hobbyist belt above in a lot of cases.
have you ever heard of the Boyd belts? The Boyd belt system. I've talked about it on a podcast a few times. Boyd belts are some guy named Boyd was talking about somebody that is for every decade younger they are at a belt level to them, as far as like how you have to think about them, and every 20 pounds heavier that they are at a belt level. So if you're, let's say you're a 50-year-old middleweight black belt, but you have this 22-year-old competition blue belt heavyweight, okay, they're going to have to train with that person as if they were like a brown belt, because they're a good 40 pounds heavier, and they've got, they're 30 years younger. So they can't just treat them like what I would say, like a peer as far as
Right.
size and age, right? So you're a black belt. If it's a peer blue belt, yeah, okay, you're going to kill them, right? Or it's not going to be a challenge. But you might get that collegiate wrestler who's just a blue belt and he's 25 and in shape, and
Yeah, that's
I'm
the other one, the wrestlers,
45.
right?
Yeah. So, um,
It's my first day of
that,
jujitsu ever. Meanwhile, you're like watching these takedowns and back takes. You're like, okay, you didn't tell me you were an NCAA wrestler. Like,
no. So we have a guy named JD Bergman who has started training at our gym. JD Bergman was a heavyweight national champion wrestler at Ohio State back in the day. He wrestled professionally for New York Athletic Club for years. He is as good a wrestler as you get. He was, like, I think he was maybe an Olympic alternate, like at heavyweight. So this guy coming in, and I saw him rolling with one of our black belts, and he was doing takedowns, and he's like obviously like good, but I didn't know who he was, and it was Nogi. So he wasn't wearing a belt. So I'm rolling with a guy, and I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, is he like an instructor from another school? Because he was really good, obviously. Um, he goes, oh no, he's a white belt. He just started. I said, that's not a white belt, dude. like, are you
but
kidding me?
how do you like treat that, right? It's like such a tricky thing because it's like, yeah, he did just start, but his skill level. I mean, he probably is a blue belt, but he doesn't know any techniques
Right.
yet.
Right.
It's
Well, and so we have another guy. We have another guy that yes. So he's athletic. He played football in college. He was a wrestler growing up. Athletically, he is still absolutely in his prime, and he can kind of be dynamic enough that he's a problem for blue and purple belt, like, because he's just that guy. However, if you cook him for a while, okay, that technique that he doesn't have, like, he went and competed, and after 4 or 5 matches, he started really struggling because now he was fatigued. He didn't have that same explosive athleticism, available that he did at the beginning of the day. So, that's honestly the way I cook new people that are young and athletic is, you know,
That's
I'll
why
let
I was
them.
doing. That's why I was working on pressure today with JT.
Yeah.
Like that was the concept, honestly. So,
One of my old
between,
coaches, Sean Chitwood, his Instagram handle is 800-pound heavy. He's a middleweight, but he's a fifth degree black belt. He's been a black belt forever. 175 pounds, and he will absolutely make, like, he rolled with me, and I knew, this is probably a year ago. I knew in the back of my head when we rolled, I knew for a fact he was gonna try to cook me because I'm an ultra heavy, and I just knew that that's what he was gonna do to me, and and he didn't get it at first. He went knee on belly and he got super heavy, and it was miserable. But I was able to subside, get out, keep going, keep going. But by like the third time, and we're in like the last minute of the round, I mean, he just finally, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm tapping into this pressure. And even though he's a lot lighter than me, but again, it's like setting the planet on your solar plexus. Uh, there are levels to it where a guy that's 50 pounds lighter than you can feel like they're an 800-pound gorilla.
yeah, the
So,
JT Torres neon belly includes a nice, healthy tug of the lapel into
mhm.
him. That's
Yeah,
that's that. That's when you feel your soul get sucked out of your body, and you can literally just watch it come out of your mouth. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, I, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're about ready to tap to just straight pressure. I've been training long enough. I should be able to find ways to not
Don't do it.
just
Don't
be
do it.
crushed.
Don't do
Like,
it.
like I would just, please, just sub me, like, take my arm or choke me so that I don't have to tap to this pressure.
Let me give you my back.
Right? Yes, yes, yeah. And people do it all the time. People will finally decide that like I use a pillow choke often, and I can create a lot of. I've got good topside pressure being a big dude, heavy guy. And this pillow choke that I've been working on and working on. I finally figured out if you pull the lapel, I mean, it's a soul crushing kind of deal that upper belts sometimes can figure out, how to manage the pressure, but you can cook most people. Um, People will just start handing you their arm. They will straight up just turn their back because they just don't want that pressure anymore. And um,
It was great this morning actually training one of the black belts in the academy who's known for heavy pressure. Like the beauty of jujitsu, right? Like that cliche, one day you're the hammer, day you're the nail. But it's really just amazing how sometimes you can feel so good. Sometimes you feel like you don't know anything. Like that emotional thing is also, I think, quite healthy for your mental health, like keeping your ego in check. But anyway, this guy was known for topside pressure, like, and he's good at it. We rolled today. And this is after I was lucky. I did a private with JT before class, and we were working on pressure, and I had the planet put on me, and he was just trying to cook me, and cook me, and cook me, and it sucked. It really did
mhm.
suck. But like I was calm the whole way through, like and after the roll, he looked at me. He's like, "Dude," he's like, "Very impressive." He's like, "I was cooking you hard, and it was you just didn't seem like it was bothering you." And I looked at him and I was like, "Oh no, it was bothering. It was
Yeah,
really
no, it
bothering me."
sucked.
But I
It,
just I was just kind of keeping my composure there. And it's the sport itself. Like I just want to touch also on like these kids in the academy. Like Essential Jiu Jitsu has a very robust kids program. Very, I think probably one of the top competition teams for like the younger kids. It's hard for me to find any of these kids that I can say is a dick, right? And in talking to them in the locker room, and I always ask like just bizarre questions because I want to learn, like, who's your favorite gi company? Why? Like I just want to understand how people are thinking.
yeah,
And um they're all so calm and cool and confident. And I think that has a lot there is a lot there in this world we live in where everyone's talking about the traumas that they have, and everyone does, right? We all are human beings. We all experience the universe and the world our own way, and we digest it that way. But the fact that they have this confidence that they've gained from being in this academy, this confidence in like they can obviously defend themselves or their whatever it may be, it's like they're not the insecure ones who do pick on people. They're the ones who
right.
actually defend other kids and carry themselves in a way that's so positive. So like for me, like as much as I do talk about jujitsu with my peers and my friends, and very similar to you, I have about a 1% success rate. Um, the people that I've spoken to from the children's side of things, I've actually had a higher success rate. And I've also had I've had the response of, wow, you're right. Like I see a change in little Johnny, and
Yeah,
so to me, like once again, coming back after a big layoff and watching this sport, the numbers are astonishing of what the growth of jujitsu is, right? Like, now there people are saying like the academies are being saturated. There's an academy in every town. But I think that the youth, um, I think is really going to continue to grow because it's working. It's working. These kids are becoming better kids for it, right? And they're not stuck on their iPads playing video games with their friends from that they don't even hang out with. They're all on their own gamer chair, right? And so I
yeah.
think, so I am seeing a lot of success when I suggest it to parents, and those parents are coming back with kind of the reviews of, wow, this is so great. And then the best part for me is, and they don't even know that that's JT Torres teaching a class, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Like
by
they
the
have
way,
no
you have
idea.
one of the best in the world. Yeah,
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 you know, and it's
yeah,
cool. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think over the next like 10 to 20 years, seeing the evolution just in the game, right? Like, are these guys playing half guard, sloth guard, or are these guys doing crazy barambola, flying pass? Like who knows how the game is going to evolve? And yeah,
yeah.
on a Boyd scale, we have to, or Boyd, we have to definitely be conscious of that.
Well, and there's not a shortage of students. I know that because we have a bunch of gyms in our area right now. But within our kids program, we actually hit a max where we were not signing up new kids because we were too full. And and again, I'm at the Taj Mahal of jujitsu gyms. Our mats are massive and we have multiples, and we were out of room. Um, and so, thankfully there are other gyms, so it's not like kids can't train. But we are kind of in the early adopter phase still, I think. Um, and that growth, especially with what you mentioned with kids, because it is obviously apparent when a kid is training, the difference in how they behave, how they act, how they, the level of confidence that they have. Their parents can see that, right? And parents talk to parents, and so little Johnny is getting Jimmy to go. It's like it's just going to keep growing, and I think that we're also in an era where parents that didn't grow up on the algorithm are watching their kids on the algorithm, trying to figure out how do I get them to disconnect, because they they didn't grow up with an iPad at the dinner table. you know and
I mean,
now
we used to
you
play
kind of
video
see that.
games. Everyone was at your house, and it's who gets next.
Yeah.
We have two controllers, right?
How old are you?
I'm 49.
Yeah, so do you remember like LAN parties for Halo, where everybody brought their Xbox over, and
Yes, that was a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I actually saw something like really bizarre, and it makes sense, and I don't, I can't claim this, but the concept of games back then ended. Like you had X amount of lives and it ended, versus today's era of like things autosave and kind of never end. The game
yeah,
is endless. You can't beat the game.
right.
Like the effect that
Endless
even
side
has,
quests.
yeah, on psychology and
Hmm.
like what that does for you, right? Like almost like I'm not going to unplug because it never ends, and they're not telling me it's over ever, right?
Well,
Like
they're huge. It's entire universes.
yeah,
Um, you know, there's always something you can be doing in you know these games. Especially like some of the bigger title open world stuff. Your Red Deads, and I still play games, and yeah, and so you know yeah, I've put a good number of hours hunting perfect pelts in Red Dead Redemption 2. Like and that's not part of the story, kids. That's
yeah,
just it's a side quest. It's something to go collect. you know
yeah. But just to me, like if I were to like just kind of sum up my thoughts on just what I'm seeing, it's just really a world, a society that is becoming very algorithmic, and we have a sport and a lifestyle and a community that is the antithesis of that in a lot of ways. And I think that that's what's going to be really great for jujitsu as we move forward. I had read a study where like they say like for people it used to be like your home, your job, and like one other area where humans had this place to have human to human interaction, whether that be church or this place or that place. And now it's starting to almost, then it was home and the job. That third was kind of dwindling down, and then with COVID and a lot of people working from home, it kind of became like the home, right? And
yeah.
I think that there is such a huge value in having a place that you can go and you can be a part of a community. And I'm not even talking about the physical health or the lack of ADD in that moment, just having connection with other people, um, which we are doing less and less as a society. I think that like a lot being there, this is something that more and more people are going to be attracted to, whether we know that yet or not. Like I think that is an attraction for people who may not even think about what I just said, who never heard that theory, but it's very much true. It's like, my dad used to always say, I need to go to the office to get some peace and quiet. That was like one of his famous lines. Now like lots of people
Yeah.
don't have an office, right? Lots of people are working, they're doing Peloton
Right.
at home, right? Like it's just like, and just
Yeah.
it's so important to be able to branch out and to be able to have your thing and this community and these people and this tribe. I think that that's how we are truly wired as a species, and we're seeing a lot of that stripped away. And it's like, whoa, mighty jujitsu, checks the box in that category too. Um,
Yeah,
something I feel strong
absolutely.
about.
It is being stripped away. I mean, devices are just getting more and more integrated with us. Now you can wear your phone on your face in the form of meta glasses, and it's you can just sort of move your hand and text. And I don't have them, but that's it's just going to get more and more. Whether it's a Neuralink, it, who knows where we're going to be in 50 years.
I mean, dude, live events, right? You used to go to a concert and it was awesome. Now you go to a concert and it doesn't matter what genre it is. It could be electronic dance music or it could be country music. Everyone's holding up their phones. It's like, we get it. You were there.
Yeah,
You like
yeah,
you're there. And
yeah.
but it's almost like if you don't hold up your phone and you don't record it the whole time, were you not there?
Yeah, you don't
Like,
have well, and that's so that gets into the highlight reel of people's social media, right? They
mhm,
want the adulation of the likes that says, "Yeah, I'm not missing out because I'm at this concert."
I'm
You know,
here.
that's like and there was a point where I was guilty of this, posting pictures of fireworks on the 4th of July as
Yeah.
if you're ever going to watch that fucking video again in your life. Um, and nobody else wants to see your video of your fireworks, right? Now they were really cool fireworks, but yeah, we,
It's like you can't take a good
just
picture. You can't take a good picture of the moon. Like
right.
there's certain things where it's like just having that moment and having that
Hmm.
moment for yourself and that
Yeah,
experience is all that matters. But I'm as guilty as you, right? Like to we've been so trained to like feel this obligation of doing that, right? The fireworks. I'm guilty. Like I feel now it's one of these things where like sometimes I want to be the jerk who posts like I don't want to see your firework photos, but it's like why be a
right,
hater?
right.
Let people be people. Uh, but I think that we were finding ourselves more and more being guilty to this algorithm.
100%.
More and more and more. Like just to circle back to the art thing, it's like creatives, musicians, fashion designers, like this algorithm is front and center. And in a lot of cases, they don't even know it, but the decision making is based on the algorithm versus based on the moment.
What are the artists? What is the sentiment among especially small artists, whether it's music or art? What is the sentiment about where AI is going?
I think
Um,
it's got a bigger, I don't want to say like risk, but I think that music it can have a much larger effect. I mean, we've seen it, right? Like some of Spotify's top artists are actually straight up AI artists now.
yeah,
I think in like from like a production level of music, like it's made it a lot easier. It used to be like you wanted to sample something, you needed the record, you needed to be
yeah,
able to, now it's like I like this, strip it down so I don't even have to get the sample cleared or like make a beat just like this. And it's pretty hard to be like that wasn't a person versus, because now most music is made on the computer anyway. Like,
yeah,
but I feel like to me, like a painter, an artist's hand, that is something that's going to be very hard to replicate. I know a lot of artists who have almost like strived for perfection of where they wanted the work to almost look as if it wasn't done. It was like too good. How can a human physically do this? But they did, right?
yeah,
And I've had conversations with them now, which are like, I think that soon people are going to want to see your mistake. People are going to want to
yeah,
see your thumbprint on the sculpture that you didn't smooth out and make perfect.
yeah,
Like, and this is my vision, but I think music is it could see a big change. I mean,
yeah,
think of it. Coding could see a big change, right? You have a guy who never built a website who's able to build an app on his phone. I mean, I did use my computer too, but like it
yeah.
was on my phone. And I want to just like I don't know why I'm going here, but I want to just say like one story, kind of about art and AI and the algorithm, that you just made me think of. I don't know who this photographer is, and I apologize if you are listening and I don't give you credit. but I saw a photographer who did a series of photographs of kind of like crowd shots. And what he did is he post edited these shots and took the phones out of everyone's hands in these
Mm,
shots. And it was such a profound thing for me to see and an eye-opening thing for me to see. It really focuses in on how much we're looking at the phone and not looking at the event. And I see it, at the kids' jujitsu classes where parents are all sitting around looking at their phones, right? And like I kind of like run through that photograph in my mind of like, this is the photograph. And I
yeah,
think that that's something else that we're going to see kind of like into your FOMO concept that we talk about with the posting, which is like the value that a child has of just picking up their head and looking over and seeing their mom or their dad just
paying
watching them
attention. Yeah.
versus like I think and I was very guilty of this until I saw this photograph where I'm like, that's me and I have to stop. And it's not so easy to do, right? These phones are built for addiction.
And I think it's a great point to make. That's and whether your kids are doing jujitsu or playing basketball or baseball or whatever their activity is, if you can put the phone away and watch your kids do the thing, number one, when they do look to that sideline or to the parents area at a jujitsu gym and they see that their parents are watching them do something, it does feel good to them. That's it's important. I know what I didn't have jujitsu when I was growing up, but I played other sports, and I know that I was always super happy when I had a parent watching me play my sport. Um, and then from the parents' standpoint, we don't get the time back. Your kids are gonna. I don't know how old your kids are, Todd, but mine are grown, and one's still in college, but they're out of the house, so we're empty nest, and so there are no more basketball games to go to, and so take advantage of that time while you have it, and watch your kids practice and compete and do things.
Yeah, it just there's some level of comfort, right? Like
Hmm.
mom, like I just got maybe a little bit hurt or it's not a big deal, and I look over, and dad
Yeah,
gives me a thumbs up or mom smiles at me, like like there's certain some form of just like I guess like comfort or protection. And once again, I don't mean to sound like this like Debbie Downer on society, and I think it's the beauty of being able to have lived in both a pre-internet era and a post-internet era, and being able to see the pros and the cons and understanding enough to know today's era, but knowing how it was. I don't mean to say like when I went to school as a kid, I had to climb uphill both ways in 10 feet of snow, but at the same time, it's very clear to me, you know, there's a lot of good with technology, a lot of great with technology, but we're also, I think, just being slowly but surely like stripped away of like realizing some important things, such as just watching your kid.
yeah,
You don't have to be on Facebook. You don't have to play Angry Birds. Like
right.
like whatever it may be. Like, how about just enjoying the moment and watching for them?
I think it's critical, and that was something my wife and I we had a rule that when our son he played basketball in high school, when he was playing, the phones were in our pockets, and maybe when they were at halftime, yeah, okay, if you need to check email or whatever, fine, but um, we didn't want him looking up into the stands and we're buried in our phones, right? So
It makes you feel right. Like, think about it. Like, what's my value?
yeah,
Like, what's my value?
yeah,
Like,
is Angry Birds more important than my
yeah,
basketball game? Yeah,
what's the value to my parents?
yeah,
Like, and what are we teaching them by doing that, right? Like, you
sure.
talk about generational kind of concepts. It's like, like if this is all is like, yeah, I take my kids to a sporting event and I sit on my phone while they do their thing. They're
Yeah.
obviously going to replicate that behavior as well.
It
Um,
actually, when I used to coach football, and I coached at several different levels, but at the younger ages, the pee wee ages, obviously these kids aren't driving, so parents are taking them to practice, and then they would just go sit in their car for an hour and a half rather than watch their kids play, um, and I never liked it, or they would have questions after. So like they'd sit in their car, they wouldn't watch anything. And then they'd be like, oh, why isn't Johnny playing here or there? And it's like, well, if you'd watch practice, you might see some things.
Or maybe even just like, encouragement. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I agree.
I just like, I keep thinking back on, this is why jujitsu is great though. Like
Yeah.
this human element, this camaraderie, this component. Like, yes, like, it's funny, right? Like you're rolling with people, you're not trying to hurt someone, you're being a good training partner, but there is like there's a competitive component between you and a friend, right? Like, like I forgot, like, JT said the other day, he's like, all right, now's the time when we go try to beat up our friends, like as like
Yeah.
as like a joke.
Yeah.
But then, you strip it down and it's like this just real human contact. And,
Well, and I'm glad you brought it up. And the good thing is you're not the only person that has brought that up, actually, even on this podcast, about parents being on their phones while their kids are practicing. Um, and what a pet peeve that is for an instructor, for good reason, right? The parents need to be paying attention to what their kids are doing, as an activity. Now, don't coach them. Let the coach. Let the kid do his thing, but watch what your kids are doing.
That's my favorite too, is the parent coaches. That's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But I see that all the time, where it's like, you never even trained before. You're coaching
Right.
him off of a YouTube video that you saw about an arm in triangle.
Yeah.
Like, dude, let the coach coach. He's a competitor and a gold medal winner. Let this guy coach.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where,
It's
we could get into the whole conversation of letting your kids quit, right? Like, do you let your kids quit? Do you not let your kids quit, right? There's kind of like no right answers.
And parents, if I'm being honest, there are great parents out there, but parents don't stop being a pain in the ass for coaches at any level. When I was on the Ohio State football staff, we still would have parents literally calling Coach Tressel.
I was just going to ask if it was Tressel. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally calling him, how come my son is not on the field? It's like, well, ma'am, number one, this ain't Pee Wee. This is the Ohio State University. At the time, at the time, we're ranked number one in the country. But your son can't catch the football. He was very good in high school, but at this level, he kind of sucks. And it's and there's no guaranteed playing time. And the example I'm referencing, he transferred. I'm not going to say his name, but he's also not the only parent that called while I was at OSU. So parents are parents, no matter how old the kid is. I would even be willing to bet there's probably been a mom or two that's called an NFL coach. I would put money on it. So
I have a rule, which is especially because I know these guys, right? Like a lot of the parents don't train. I'd say probably maybe 15% do, that 15 to 20%. But I always say, like, do what you got to do. Like, you do what you got to do. Like, you're not going to hear from me you're being too tough on him. You're not going to hear from me you're being too easy on him. You're not going to, do what you got to do. You have full autonomy over your decision making. It's your class. And I think that that's the right way to do it, right? Because I hear parents complaining, this coach is too strict. Well, yeah, because your kid's not paying attention, because he probably doesn't get it, doesn't get, you have to get disciplined at home per se.
Yeah.
Or like commenting on how, my kid didn't get enough session sparring in versus the other kids. Like, no one can ever, you learn in life, right? No one is perfect. Everyone's trying to do their best. And these parents are trying to do their best. I feel like I believe every parent sets out to try to be the best, right? And that your execution isn't always the case, but
and sometimes level setting expectation is something they've got to be able to do, and maybe some of them are better at it than others.
Signs, like no coaching from the sidelines. There's no
good
photographs. There's no this. There's no that. Like, there's a very kind of strict. And by the way, just because there's signs standing right in front of a parent's face, it won't prevent them necessarily from coaching. It's humans. That's who we are. So, I really appreciate you having this conversation. I could talk to you, Matthew, for a long time about a lot of different things because I could see you think
Yeah.
very similarly to me.
Yeah.
In just a
Well,
lot of areas, man.
maybe what we do is at some point, we'll have you back on. We can dig deeper into this, and I've got several other guests that would definitely at some point I'm going to circle back and have
It'd be my
repeat
pleasure.
folks
It'd be
on.
my pleasure.
But let's wrap it up here today. But before we wrap up, where can people find your social medias, your app, the things that you would want them to find?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's funny. Okay. So my, what I would say, like my primary social media, which really is a lot more art based, creative based, but it does also involve jujitsu as well. It's actually cool because I'm working on a project with Albino Preto, kind of tying all these worlds in together, which is really, really fun. But that would be at Instagram. My name at Todd Todd Kramer Kramer. Reach out, send me a message. Love to connect with anyone. My TikTok, which really kind of started as a personal diary. I was like, you know what? I got a bunch of followers on Instagram who care about this stuff. I don't know why they do, but they like what I like sometimes. But TikTok, to me, I started an account. I never was on TikTok, and I was just kind of recording for myself this journey, ideas that popped in my head, not even, not chasing likes per se, and just being authentic. A lot of times saying how much I suck. And that is, I believe, Todd_Kramer is the name there. We can.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Todd_Kramer. And if you're interested in BJJ OS, which is the app, that's available on the Apple Store. Just search BJJ, or I think BJJ. I'm paying for ads right now. I think it comes up right away, but BJJ OS, it'll come up. And anyone who listens to this podcast, who's interested in it, Matthew, like I'm happy to send anyone who wants to sign up, give you a code where they can get 2 weeks free to try it out before anything. So, and I'll include that as well. Or just reach out to me if you're listening to this podcast. Tell me you heard it on here, and we'll figure something out. I think that would be really
Perfect.
great. I really was here just to talk shop, and I appreciate you letting me talk about the app.
Yeah, dude.
And it's to show you how little I knew what I was doing when I built this. The app is actually developed by Todd Kramer. It looks so bizarre. Like it's not developed by some, company or this and that. I didn't know when I had to sign up for my Apple developer that I actually come up with this. So, it definitely looks mom and pop, but the intention.
You know what? I like that though. Like,
yeah,
I don't need the fluff. I mean, so for a long time I was writing out notes. I have a jujitsu, like a paper journal, and I'm like, I bet I could do this faster on a phone. And so that's what I was after is something where I could journal. And then you also have this huge video library that's actually recommending videos that are pertinent to what I was talking about. Because there's some other apps where you'll kind of do like an AI log and then it tries to spit it back out, and it's like not at all what you just described.
Dude, it took me so long to fine tune this thing.
Right.
And it's got a ways to go. I am very happy with the product that it is right now. But I mean, I'm talking guillotines and it's sending me De La Riva sweeps in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man, you have all this, like really
Yeah.
figuring out how to get everything to communicate and plug in and interpolate. Like that was a heavy lift. Fortunately, I didn't need to have coding understanding. I had to just have understanding of how I wanted it to work. And if I will just say, like anyone who's interested in coding, in building something or building something that you want, even if it's just for yourself, the technology is out there. And, I feel like people for the first time ever, morons like me who've never coded before can have an idea and a workflow that they think it could work and build it. And even if it's just for yourself. And, so I really I feel very strongly that we're moving to a place where people can start to create things for themselves in a way they never thought they could. There was a handful of people who knew how to code. It was a very expensive barrier to entry to even start. Like I would have never built BJJ OS 2 years ago. It's a cool idea, but it would have been incredibly expensive to make.
Well, I wouldn't have this podcast if it wasn't for AI production tools. No freaking way. So, yeah, those tools are
I
out.
think AI film, a whole different discussion. I think AI movies, as much as they're getting backlash from people right now because it's not there yet, I have this theory that like when I think it's Pixar or like some of these like digital animations started coming out, people like me who are old school were like, that's not real animation, that's computerized. And now all of a sudden that's become the norm.
All of it.
So
yeah.
I'm just gonna say, we'll see where this
It's coming.
goes.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'll say. The lesson in this, as I've been listening, you're a gallerist who can't paint, and you're an app developer that can't code. But because you went after it, okay, and you decided to take a step forward and try something that maybe wasn't in your wheelhouse, you've been able to execute, right? So the lesson in that is, if you're listening and there's something that you want to do but you just don't think you have it, the background or the skills or whatever, just give it a shot. You never know, you might surprise yourself and come up with something awesome.
If you're passionate about it, chase your passion.
Bingo.
And it's going to work out. You're passionate about
Yeah.
podcasts, bang, you have one. So,
Yeah.
Matthew, let's chat soon. And definitely really just grateful. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts. Grateful for you to ask me to be on. And I really straight up enjoyed this conversation. I could talk with you for hours. So,
I appreciate the fact that you're willing to give me your time because, again, as we talked about it, you don't get your time back. And so, sharing the time, and yeah, okay, I'm more than willing to promote your app, and I know that you're going to help promote the podcast, and so there's mutual benefit there. But at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that you were willing to talk to me in the first place. So if you're listening, all of the links to the applications and websites that Todd has and will be in the show notes. Again, this is Still Rolling Jiu Jitsu. New episodes every Tuesday, and so I hope you tune in. See you next week.